Hello, welcome everyone. John didn't let me start this webinar before. It's like we touch like 6 p.m. sharp, like German.
It needs to be sharp.
It needs to be sharp. So I was like, let's start. He was, no, it needs to be sharp. So welcome everyone to our webinar tonight, how to run remote design sprints. This evening, we're going to focus on two phases, how to plan a design sprint and how to onboard your team. So those are like our main goals to achieve this evening. I'm Vetan and John. This is John Vetan. We are going to be your hosts for this evening. And we're going to share our experience of running remote design sprints for the past 4 months, 6 months.
For the past month.
For the past month. And also share a little bit of our journey and how we got here. But first, I hope it works. If not, John, please click that. It doesn't, just click that.
Oh, okay.
First, we just want to say greetings from Berlin, and we want to ask you to write down in the chat window, where are you from? Where are you located? As you can see, we are here at our Berlin office where we enjoy a nice light, but a very dark atmosphere outside. It's super rainy, super cold, and again, dark, like typical for Berlin. Like, I don't like that.
So we have Dubai, Athens, South Africa, all over the place, Johannesburg.
Johannesburg.
Nice.
Zurich.
Rainy bird. Yes.
There you go. We empathize with you. London. What else? Bangladesh. Oh my God.
Everywhere.
Oslo.
Love that city.
Georgetown. What's the time there in Texas? India, Cincinnati, Amsterdam. Oh my God. I can see already 74 participants joining, which is great. We didn't expect such a high attendance for this evening, especially since we haven't done those types of webinars for a long time now. But we want to keep our discussion focused. So thank you so much for your comments and keep on pouring, keep on pouring. Like, we're very curious to know where are you from and where is our audience located. So it's very nice. And again, thank you so much for taking the time to join us this evening and go together through the topic that we have tonight. Basically, we want to walk you through our remote design sprint journey and also discuss a little bit about what we consider to be proactive strategies regarding how to set up the stage for the design sprint, for a remote design sprint, and how to onboard your team. But besides that, I think it's John's turn to talk a little bit about us so that you know where we're coming from, what we do, who we are, and then we'll dive right into it.
As our company name says, we're Design Sprint Academy, and we're all about design sprints. And we use design sprints, we like to say, to bring innovation to the world. We're using it to help businesses come up with new concepts, solve problems, build products, right? All of these things we're using the design sprint process for. It's the core of our business. To be more specific, we're doing three things. For one, we do design sprint facilitation, and where we help companies solve their own challenges. We run design sprint workshops and problem framing workshops. We do use our approach, which we've developed over the years. It's called Design Sprint 3.0, and I think you should get the link somewhere in the chat if you want to learn more about it. Now, everything that we learn in by facilitating these sessions, everything, all of the challenges that we're facing, they all go into our training programs. And basically everything that we teach from our experience, and that's another thing of what we do. We help companies build internal capabilities, around design sprints, around problem framing, innovation, solving problems. And we also arm them with the right tools and toolkits to put in practice this knowledge. Finally, there's professional certification that we offer, because yes, you get to learn design sprint, but then you also need to prove that you know how to use them. And that's why we have the certification program. So I think that's a little bit about us. I mentioned the design sprint, which is the core of our business, but something else that's equally close to our heart, and I think even more than that, is problem framing, which is something we developed. It's a critical part of design sprints, and it's something that we do in order to ensure successful design sprints. We did run our first design sprint training in Berlin 4 years ago, and also launched problem framing with Google 2 years ago in San Francisco when we trained their own internal academy. We do enjoy a large community all over the world, and I think a big part of you already joined tonight. And I want to thank to everyone for joining. As I can see, you're coming from all over the world. We're also leading the Google chapters in London and in Berlin, and as part of them, we're organizing events lately. Not so many. But yeah, we used to travel a lot in London, also do in person in Berlin. Unfortunately, with the current context, it's less and less, but we want to pick them up, and we're doing them virtually, this being one of the first events. You already see us. I'm John. Here with me, it's Dana. We're partners in business, in life. And yeah, we're going to be your host today. A little bit of bragging about our clients. We're working with lots of brands from startups to fairly larger clients. And I think that's about, I'm going to hand it to Dana.
Talking about our clients, there are three guiding principles that help us do great work with our clients, and that's empathy, collaboration, and inclusivity. Empathy, because we don't start a project without talking with our clients first and understanding their needs and setting the right stage and understanding their expectations. Collaboration is about fostering this communication and making sure that everyone's voice is being heard and everyone is included. And talking about these principles and our facilitation style comes the first challenge that we basically have is that we felt that bringing this type of facilitation and our style into a remote setup, it will not work. And we're saying hello here to our confirmation bias because actually we looked for all kinds of proofs to uphold our beliefs, and we kind of dismissed all the contrary information telling us, hey, remote work actually works, remote sprints do work. We kept on going with this bias, and we believe that, well, we are definitely not going to be able to provide the same experience and reach the same outcomes as we do with in-person workshops and with in-person meetings, for example. So yeah, we need to accept that. And on top of that, we added a status quo bias when we decided, nah, we are not going to do it, because why change something or why fix something that doesn't need fixing, right? Mm-hmm. So we kind of stayed in this area, and I can say that for the past years, since we've been running multiple design sprints and problem framing workshops, we haven't done a remote type of workshop.
I mean, we're doing it for preparing workshops.
And with small exceptions in the problem framing area, but not an end-to-end design sprint with our client in a remote.
I mean, in person was so rewarding, and it was working so great. Workshops, training, everything. So
exactly. Why change that? So please give a +1 in the comments if you empathize with that, or if you have been in this type of situation, or you feel that I said no to things just because I liked how things were going the way they were. This will help us like see if anyone is in the same situation as we were.
Yeah.
As you all know, thank you so much. I see some +1 there. Thank you. March came with COVID in Germany, and it was like a complete lockdown, and any type of in-person design sprints or in-person workshops were like suspended. So yeah, we had to wake up really quickly.
I mean, yeah, we have a business that
depends on in-person meetings and workshops. So yeah, it kind of struck a chord there. But that wasn't the only reason that pushed us into the change. The fact that remote collaboration is here to stay, and it was always here. And all the companies that we work with, basically, they do have distributed teams everywhere. And not only that, we started to getting more and more client inquiries like, when can we do this as a remote workshop? Where can we meet remotely? Because we cannot bring everyone on site as we would like to. And of course, with this situation, it's even harder. So yeah, that told us, okay, you need to say goodbye to your biases and come on and change. So it was time to change for us. But again, I'm going to ask you for a plus one. If in the moment that change is coming towards you, you feel fear, because that's what we felt, fear of failure. Our first question was, okay, we're going to do this remote, but how are we going to facilitate remote design sprints overnight since we haven't done it before? And of course, we kind of, do I say plus one here, plus two?
Plus
Thank
two.
you.
Timothy is adding to her first one, to his first one. Yeah.
So yeah, fear of failure, right? And even worse, fear to disappoint, because our question was, how will we ensure we get the same great result for our clients when the stakes are high, right? Because our clients expect that from us. For them, there's no excuse. Now, oh God, you're now remote. What? You cannot deliver the same thing. So with those fears in our heart and in our process, we thought of, okay, what can we do? And we decided to leave anxiety behind and do the same thing that we coach our clients to do. First, understand the challenges, understand, contextualize the problem, and really see what's going on. Then, second step would be shift our perspective, try to look at this problem from different angles, and only lastly, develop some solutions to get us out of the mess. So that's what we did. Now, in order to understand the challenge, we did a little bit of research. As you probably know, there are tons of resources out there, tools, best practices, tips and tricks from other remote facilitators telling you how things need to be done, what you need to pay attention to, what's happening, what are some challenges and barriers. But we decided to look at this information with the doctor's hat on, and we looked at all the facilitation tips and advices as the pills or as the medicine that other facilitators use to deploy. And then we looked at all the problems and challenges as the symptoms, like what do they see and what type of pills do they provide in order to fix that symptoms. And that helped us like gain this overview of what's going on and how the entire ecosystem looks like. So we had pills and symptoms, which were not enough for us, because it's very important to shift our perspective, and we are like really big fans of root causes of the problems. So we use all kinds of tools and methods like the fishbone analysis and also like the bow tie risk assessment analysis to dive a little bit deeper and see what actually caused that symptom. And we discovered all kinds of triggers that happen at the level of technology, knowledge, process, motivation, people, and we could dive deep into understanding what caused all those things to appear. So that was super important for us to discover. And not only that, we also wanted to shift our perspective, like what are the problems of the facilitator, what are the challenges of a facilitator versus what are the team sprint challenges. And to our surprise, or maybe not so much surprise, they differ. They are not the same. What we as facilitator fear or we find as difficult might not feel the same way on the other side when it comes to your sprinting. But at one point, they do intersect and they are the same. And that's ineffective team collaboration. When that happens, you have a lose-lose situation, because in the end, you're going to end up with a design sprint with poor results. And that's something that we don't no one wants to have. But we found this middle ground between those two types of challenges. Now, with this shift in perspective, we were kind of ready to develop some solutions and see how we are going to bring some light in the mess. And as you probably know, there are two things you can do. You can deploy proactive strategies that help you prevent problems before they arise, or you can deploy reactive strategies that mean reacting to a problem after it occurs or in the moment. And since we were already engaged in running a design sprint client, we thought, okay, let's just see what we can do beforehand in order to prevent all the things that might go wrong throughout the sprint. And today we're going to focus
Oh, sorry.
on two on two proactive strategies, not all of them, on planning and onboarding. We kind of took more than 7 weeks to find all the proactive strategies that you can find in order to fix all the problems that might occur in a design sprint that are related to the process, technology, knowledge, motivation, and people interaction. And while we've been creating them, we ended up with building our own kit, our own sprint kit, our own tools, mural boards, agenda, everything that could help us actually solve the problems before they arise. And today in this webinar, we're just going to talk about two of them, the remote sprint plan and the team onboarding. Now, going to the remote sprint plan, we build it in a very modular and versatile way in order to help us prevent the lack of availability, because that's one of the problems that it's always there. Like not all the team members are available, maybe the decider is not available when you want them to be. But having this modular setup helped us shift all the sessions in different times to allow everyone who's important to be there. We also included offline with online sessions, exercises, so that we remove the cognitive fatigue, the screen time fatigue, the information overload, the unrealistic expectations. We also created space for people to think in silence and also to collaborate together. And we remove the confusion of a poor mix of divergent and convergent thinking exercises by setting them up in the right way. And we also ensure that we ditch the lack of engagement just by the way we stage the process. And next, John is going to take you to in a more detailed view of what this remote sprint plan actually looks like.
Right. Because as Dana said, before we even started our first design sprint, we were trying to foresee everything that would happen. And obviously one of the first thing was, can we run a design sprint in the same way as we would run it in person? And I think like we discussed a lot and we said, no, we did some tests and we could see that everything takes so much longer online than in person. So as a result of everything that we've tested, our research, our knowledge so far, right? We came up with this plan. As you can see, it's we're doing it over 5 days. This is the sprint plan, right? So I'm not taking into consideration the work you're doing before the sprint, which is the problem framing, your groundwork, gathering information, all of the logistics. So that's not in here. We're focusing just on the actual sprint itself. So we're doing it in 5 days. When we're doing it in person, we're doing it over 4 days. So it's one extra day. And if you can see at the end, we added something that's called a moving forward agenda, which by the way, it's a good idea to do it in person as well if you're running design sprints. Anyway, the sprint plan, the sprint structure, it's very modular. And as you can see, it's a series of online and offline sessions. None of them is longer than 2 hours, right? So they're quite short. And anyway, even in these 2 hours, you still have some short breaks. And the good thing about it is that you can almost run them as their own mini workshops. So you want to do an ideation workshop, just run a how might we session, right? You want to set a direction for something, do some lightning talks. You want to do a mapping exercise, you have it, right? So you can run them individually. The other advantage with having this modular structure is you don't need to find 5 straight days in someone's calendar. You just need to see, okay, when is my team available for a session, right? And then just work with that. That's why you can either run it in 1 week over 5 days, or you can spread it over 10 days. You have the flexibility to do so. And then there is a trick on the sequence of these sessions, but I'm going to go day by day and explain them. So I start with day one. Day one, when we start the sprint, we have two online sessions. We have one offline session. The first one is the lightning talks, where we introduce the sprint challenge, and then everyone shares their own perspective over it. I'm going to show you the onboarding a bit later, but during the lightning talks, we're basically using information we're already captured in the onboarding, which makes it for a very smooth start. So we're not putting people on the spot. All right, Joe, what's your opinion about the sprint challenge? And Joe's like, what? So no, Joe knows what the sprint challenge is. We've already discussed. He has his talking points. Right, so it's something that's staged, is prepared, and that's why we can keep it in time, because everyone knows what they're doing. And then once this session is over,
Maybe you can do your
yeah, sorry.
muted.
Once this session is over, we have an offline session here where the team can review any research material, reading material. Most of the times we go into the sprints preparing a map, so that's something that they do during the offline period, where they look over the customer journey map, they get really familiar with it, and yeah, everything that we've prepared ahead of time. Yes. I mean, even if you're sending them onboarding emails, even if you're sending them reading materials before the sprint, there are chances that some people from the team, they will not do it, which is why we really want to give them this time in the sprint to get a chance to look over the materials. And we're also kind of threatening them, and we're telling them that, no, we're not. We're telling them that that's something we're going to review together when we get back. Anyway, then there's the lunch break. So basically the team has a break of 2 hours almost, right? From 11 to 1 p.m., where they don't necessarily need to be on a call, and talk to other people. So and then they enjoy a nice lunch break. And then in the afternoon, we get back together, and we basically use that session for alignment. We're reviewing the customer journey map. We're adding to it if there's anything that needs to be added to it. Generally, we're doing pain points, and desired outcomes, or whatever the context might be. And then as everyone is very familiar now with the sprint challenge, with the research, they're familiar with the customer journey map, with our user, they have all of this knowledge. It's really easy to close with the long-term goal and the sprint question. It's a very, very easy exercise. Now, because this session is at the end of the day, just in case we have more discussion on the customer journey maps, we have enough time to go over. Because normally we'd need to finish by 3 p.m., but it can easily go to 4 p.m. It's still not a very long day. So that would make the first day of the design sprint. We end up with a long-term goal and sprint questions, and everyone's aligned on what we have to do. Moving on to the second day. Second day, we're starting it with expert interviews, right? As you know, yes, you do have experts in your team, but sometimes you might need an outside perspective, right? Or very specific expertise. And that's why we're bringing these experts. We have time for 2 of them. And they each have about 30 minutes to share their experience or their perspective, the information that they have, and the team captures everything. We then have a half an hour break once we do that, and then we do How Might Wiz. And we're doing How Might Wiz as a standalone exercise. That's actually a feature of Design Sprint 3.0. We're doing the same when we're doing sprint in person. And why is that? Because How Might Wiz is all about reframing challenges into opportunities. And we were taking into consideration multiple sources for the How Might Wiz. It's the lightning talks at the beginning of day one. It's the user research that's already on the map, and it's the output of the expert interviews. So the team has 3 different sources to get inspiration for their How Might Wiz. So that really helps them get with much better results here. And also we want to give them the time to really reflect when they're coming with them, as opposed to automatically translating from whatever someone is saying. So we have a How Might We session, which is about 1 hour, and we close it with picking a target on the map. We do the How Might We voting and all of that stuff. And then once that's done, we move into And we know that how my twist people go offline, and each of them are doing their homework to find research to find inspiration for their lightning demos. And again, if they need a little bit more time, they have it because it also combined with the lunch break, again, 2 hours from the screen, from the team. And then we get back together to do the lightning demos, and everyone does a presentation. And we do Crazy 8 and Evil 8, these exercises together. Evil 8 is a new exercise we introduced into the sprint to remove pressure to perform. Maybe we can send you the link in here. And then solution sketching, it's something that everyone does on their own. This is how we close the day. We give it as homework. And we basically, some people would take 1 hour to do it and they would submit the solution, but other people would take maybe the entire afternoon. Maybe other people would do it in the evening with a glass of wine. I don't know, I don't care. But what's really, really important is what we've noticed in this remote sprint, the level of detail and quality in solution is much better because people don't have that pressure and they have the time to do it at their own pace without the facilitator. Come on, give me the solution. Time's up, time's up. So we've seen really, really good results with the solution sketch. So we're ending day 2. We have solutions to each of the problems, and then we're moving into the 3rd day of the design sprint. We're kicking off with
rested brain.
With a rested brain, rested brain.
For making decisions.
Did you want to say something else?
No.
Now I lost my flow. Anyway, so we're starting the day with evaluating all of the solutions, voting, discussing them. Generally, this process goes really, really well online, and we can keep it on time quite easily. And then we end by voting. And then we have 2 storyboarding sessions. The first one we dedicated to build a user flow, right? A storyline based on everything that's been voted, and to have that story, you know, so like, okay, this is the foundation of our storyboard, of our prototype. And then we have a break. You know how storyboard is a challenging exercise. You know, people get a lunch break, they cool off. And then we get back into the afternoon, and basically we add meat to the bones, which means we're designing every screen or stage of the storyboard. And we end the day by doing a prototype planning, saying, okay, who's going to build a prototype? Who's going to gather assets? Who's doing copywriting? Who's doing the interview script? So we're ending the day with prototype planning because some people might want to get a head start, you know, and already start working on day 3, but regardless, it's really important that everyone knows what they have to do on day 4. Well, so day 4, it's about prototype, not much of a difference from an in-person sprint. It's mostly offline, but we do insist on having team status check-ins every 90 minutes or so, just to make sure that we're all in track and everyone's aligned. By 4 p.m., we're finishing the prototype, and then the whole team gets together to do a trial run and see how the prototype works, you know, and just, I don't know, rehearse the user interview and see that, yeah, everything falls into place. Maybe we get to do some small adjustments. And then the last day is something everyone's familiar with. We start the morning by briefing the team on how they should take notes, right? How they should gather the feedback, because it's really important to capture it. And then we have the user testing sessions, right? So that's kind of how the remote sprints end. Incidentally, it's 5 days, you know, kind of classic from that perspective. And then once you've done the sprint, what we do, we do a report. It takes a few days to compile everything, to make sense of the data, of the results, of what the users said. But anyway, we're putting this into these big reports, and that's something that we bring into this moving forward workshops. That's a very quick 2 to 3 hour workshop we do with stakeholders, where we basically present what happened into the sprint, and they get to make decisions on how to move forward. Whether there's iteration sprint, or they move into execution, or they kill the project, or they do something else, right? It's something up to them, and yeah, we facilitate that kind of decision making.
Yeah, and it's the outcomes that we get.
Yeah, and if we're looking at the outcomes, after day one, we're finishing with a clear direction for the sprint, and everyone is aligned, right? We really understand what we're working on. Day two is all about coming with very different ideas and solutions to the problem. That's like the main part of day two. During day three, we make sure that we evaluate all of the solutions in a very fair process, right? Everyone's voice is being heard. We extract the best ideas and we use them to put them into a prototype, right? And then, yeah, day four, it's about coming up with a functional, realistic prototype. And day five, which is why we're doing design sprint, you're getting the user feedback. And you know how you've answered your sprint questions that you were set out to at the beginning of the week. Excellent. Onboarding. Thank you. Is it your time to speak now?
No, it's still yours.
Oh, still my turn. All right. We also promised we would share more about onboarding and talk about onboarding. Here we're going to also share how the mural boards look like. But before that, these onboarding sessions, I think, are one of the reasons why our remote sprints are very, very successful. I mean, all of our sessions have been very good so far because they help us present a lot of problems, right? That in the end, they affect your design sprint. And I can mention a few of them. Technical glitches, right? And maybe a poor work from home setup. And I'll just show you in a second how we're addressing that. Maybe not everyone knows how to use all of these tools, right? And even if I know how to use Mural, maybe the next sprint is in Miro, or there's like tons of other digital collaboration boards, right? There are unrealistic expectations about what you may or may not do during the sprint week. You know, anxiety, right, due to ambiguity, and ambiguity can be generated by many things. It's like, okay, what's expected of me? You know, what am I going to work with? Why is my boss sending me there? What's this process about? Like, it could be a ton of stuff. Lack of motivation, right? How does the sprint connect to what I want to do? Because honestly, a lot of time people are being sent into this kind of workshops and they don't know how they're landing in there. So it's really important to build their motivation. Lack of trust, you know, oh, I know design thinking, design sprints, maybe whatever that might be. Or who is this guy? Who's John? Like, why does he want to facilitate design sprint with me? And then, yeah, lack of accountability when it comes to onboarding your designer. Well, so these are the things we're addressing in, yes, to answer that question, Salvatore, we do plan one-on-one meetings. It's one-on-one onboarding sessions. We're running them before the sprint. We're doing it usually the week before, so it's still very fresh. You don't want to do it 2-3 weeks before because you kind of, yeah, you're losing momentum there. So we're doing it right before the sprint, typically Thursday, Friday, before the sprint week. They don't take more than 30 minutes each. Yeah. So if you have 7 people in your team, that would mean you need to spend what, 210 minutes on Zoom calls.
But the worst case scenario, you can do it with 2 or 3 people in one onboarding session,
Yeah.
because you can still address all their questions, give them some points, some advice, answer.
Yeah, last design sprint, we were very short on time and the teams came together last minute. So we didn't have enough time to schedule everyone and coordinate it. So we just used Doodle and created 3 sessions. And there were like 2 or 3 people per session, and we did it like that.
It took 1 hour.
It took, yeah, close to 1 hour for the session, but it still worked.
Yeah.
But don't do onboarding sessions with the whole team. That doesn't work well, and not everyone will speak, and you're going to get passengers. Onboarding emails, they're great, you know, they're nice to have, send them, but again, don't expect that everyone will read them. So don't expect you have an onboarding team because you've sent an email, hey, sprint is coming next week. No, it's not going to happen.
Now you need to show the board.
Now I need to show the board. So I will just need to switch a little bit between screens. All right. So I think everyone still sees my screen. That I can
Yes.
confirm. Okay, good. So these are all of the boards that we're using. I'm on for the sprint. I'm only going to show today the team onboarding board. So we're almost running these onboarding sessions as mini workshops. Okay, so this is the board that I'm showing you.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I like when I have confirmation, especially from my better half. Uh, good. So, assuming we're going through an onboarding session, we always start by welcoming and the objective of this session. You have to imagine when you're running sprints, and especially remote sprints, you have people who might be in a sprint for the first time, so they don't have any clue about the process or what expected of them, which again, it brings ambiguity. But on top of that, you have people who don't know the tools, and they have no idea how to use Mural, for example, right? Or any digital collaboration tool.
Plus, there's another also a question, like the first question is like, who else is coming?
Who
Who
else
else is
is
going to
coming?
be in
Yeah.
the design sprint team?
Yeah.
So they want to see, they want to know, because most of the time they're diverse teams with people
Yeah.
coming from different departments, colleagues they never met before, with whom they never worked before. And the first question is like, who else is there? I want to know. So that's why we have this nice layout with all their pictures, the name, job title, department, whatever
And
is
it could be
important.
something like, welcome, like this is the team you'll be working with these fine people. And today I'm doing an onboarding session with you in which we're going to just talk about the project next week and what we're going to do, what's your role. And just to make sure, we're going to see how familiar you are with the tool. In this case, we have Mural, but it could be Miro, concept board, that's a new one. Anyway, there are like a few of them. So once it's clear, and they're like, okay, this is what's going to happen in this session. We're going to review the sprint challenge that we have for next week. This is something we determine after problem framing. So that's why we do problem framing, because we need to know the design sprint challenge and the problem statement going into the design sprint, right? We're not deciding in the design sprint, that's already too late. So and this challenge, we're going to take it through a process the entire week, and these are the outcomes you're going to get each day. I just walked you through that. And then finally, in these sessions, I'm going to just get your opinion about this challenge, which is something like this. And then I would start. Now that I know how to do it. Now, I'm going to go a little bit more in detail about the challenge. Of course, there's no challenge in here, it's a template, but you got the point. And given this challenge, what's your opinion on it? And then here I'm basically starting a conversation with the person I'm onboarding, to see what they think of this challenge, what are like some positives, some pain points that they might have, what could be improved, opportunities, whatever it is. So let's suppose the sprint challenge is something about remote work from home, something like this, some positive thoughts. Well, someone might say, okay, it's good to work from home, or I enjoy the extra time. Some of the challenges could be, well, my kids are dropping into meetings all the time, right? Or my home office setup is not that great, something like that. Or like open questions, will we still be able to work remotely after this ends? Now, very important, all of this information here, it's going to be the foundation of their lightning talks on Monday morning or the first day of the sprint. So they're already mentally prepared, they know what they have to do, they're going to be confident going into that session. Not to mention having them written when they get to present them on Monday, the rest of the people will be able to read through, not only listen. Like imagine in a sprint, 7 people talk after each other. Do you remember what everyone has said? Right? And people don't really like to take notes. So having this already prepared is really good to start your sprint. Anyway, we're having this conversation, and then we're presenting the sprint week. So like, hey, this is the sprint week. This is what happens each day. This is what we're going to do. These are the outcomes. And at this point, we're addressing any questions about the process and how the process works. Finally, why are you here, right? Like, what do you need to do as a sprint team member during the week? And then we tell them, you don't have to do much, just share your knowledge, but most importantly, you need to solve the problem. That's something that you need to do. You're expected to come up with a solution. to this problem that we just presented. And then finally, we say you'll be needed at these times during these days. And that's really important, especially in larger companies where everyone is trying to squeeze another 30-minute call, right? Or another client meeting or God knows what. So that's why it's really good to go through the schedule with them. So, so they know when they need to be available. Now, and at this point, you can maybe negotiate with them if they need time for a meeting, let's say, and you can work around it. But doing this, I mean, we haven't had any attrition with our design sprint teams, and yeah, it's people are really committed to it. So yeah, it really helps with commitment.
That's because in a way they promise you they will be there. So they make like a verbal promise to you. They will clear their schedule, calendar. They'll be there joining you, and they will let you know if any emergency comes out.
Yeah.
So that's why we never lost one person
Yeah,
during the sprints. We never lost anyone in any session. Everyone was there. They knew what they are doing.
And
Yeah,
and when they were busy and they had to do something, they were like, Mares, John, Dana, we need to drop off for 30 minutes. Like, I'll be back then, So it's like, it's really easy. That's why we don't really encounter, difficult situations in the sprint itself, because a lot of them were already addressing beforehand using these proactive strategies. Good. I see some questions coming into the regular chat. No, just wanted to let everyone know to put them in the Q&A so we can pick them up. Good. So by this time, people are very they know what's expected of them, how the process works. We've addressed all of their questions, and now it's time. Okay, this is the tool we're going to use. What do you know about it? Some people are already familiar with Mural, case in which it's fine, but a lot of them would not be familiar with the tool. So for them, we created this sandbox where we show them how to do basic operations. As you can see, we created some small video tutorials that shows them, okay, how is the navigation working? So I just introduced that tool to them, they're watching the video. And then I introduce the outline, which is this thing on the right-hand side, which is super important, because sometimes you hear me in a workshop say, hey, sprint team, go to outline number 6 and give me your feedback, right? Or leave some feedback. So it's really easy to direct them. And then we teach them how to do basic operation, creating a sticky note. Right, here's a video of the sticky note, but then we ask them on this right-hand side, which is blank, please create a sticky note. And I watch them do that, making sure they're able to perform that. Once they create a sticky note, now write on a sticky note, and then change the color of the sticky note, change the shape of the sticky note, and finally uploading an image. And incidentally, we're also using this image later in the design sprint for an icebreaker. But anyway, after we're finishing this onboarding session, the idea is that people come in the workshop, we can just hit the ground running, right? There's no awkward moments like, what's the tool? What do we do? No, we just start. Plus, there's no need for lots of intros and all of this stuff. Like, people are already familiar with you as a facilitator. They trust you, they know you. So it's really easy to just go. It makes it so much more efficient. Also, what I wanted to show you here, just to give you a little bit more detail about this team onboarding, like these boards work hand in hand with agendas, because there's stuff that you need to do before the workshop, before the onboarding session, where you need to prepare the board. There are like all kinds of instructions, like, for example, uploading the pictures of the team, right? Or whatever that might be. It's really detailed, step-by-step instructions on how to do this onboarding. You have the facilitator goals, the facilitator instructions, and also timings for each of the outlines. So as you can see, this one, summon all and follow outline 1. That's what needs to happen when you're here at outline number 1. So they're really correlated. We're also, like, at one point talking about the poor setup that people might have we as facilitators, when we do these onboarding sessions, we have this checklist in front of us, and I can see, okay, sound is good, no echo. There's no background noise, camera on. That's why, like, in all of our sprints, we've always had camera on there. Like, we didn't have people not showing their faces, except the last sprint, we had one person, he was like redoing his entire house. You know, and he was saying like, I can't really show you my background. And there were like also like the drilling machine there. So he was mute a lot of time. But other than that, people have been really good showing their faces. Yeah, so we're just like looking for all of these things, right? Making sure that as I do the onboarding session, I just like check the boxes
in the background.
In the
It's not
background.
like discussing with the
Yeah.
person. It's just like.
And then if I pick up that someone, maybe it's in the dark or there's an echo, I can say like, okay, I can troubleshoot ahead of time. So by the time they're in the workshop, everything is good, you know, so everyone looks nice, you know, we can hear them well, and we don't have technical problems. Yeah, I think that's what I want. That's what I wanted to show.
Yeah, we're ready for some questions.
We're ready for some questions. Maybe I could. How do I do that?
Thank you all for your questions. I see quite a lot here. I don't know which one to pick. Let's try with this one from Natalie. Do you suggest having a co-facilitator in a remote design sprint?
Yes, yes, I do.
Especially for the first time.
Especially
right?
for the first time. Last design sprint I did, it was last week. I facilitated alone. It's quite easy with the sprint kit that we have, because as you could see, like the agendas are very detailed. I just print it out. I can see whether I'm ahead of the schedule or falling behind. You know, everything is already predefined on the board. So I don't actually have to do a lot of admin work. I just need to focus on the team, but it's always good to have that backup there.
Another question, did you ever actually, it's from Ante Pelivan, did you ever actually manage to have a 30-minute onboarding with this agenda? It seems impossible.
Even less than 30 minutes, yes. And I did it with you almost here in 15 minutes, all right? How long did it take me to take you through it? So yes, absolutely, it works. Try it out. And let me show it one more time, because I can answer this question even better. Wait for it. Okay. So this is the actual agenda, right? It's timed, and it starts at 9. And here you have the actual timings for each of the activities. You know, 5 minutes for introducing the sprint challenge, 10 minutes for having the interview with people, introducing sprint week, 5 minutes, you know, so it's more than enough time.
It's a lot of writing, but it's not so much time. The writing is to guide any facilitator into what they need to say, how they need to organize, even their thoughts and their process.
But yeah, it's totally, as you can see, it's totally doable in 30 minutes.
Okay. Let's see another question. Can a design sprint be completed in 2 or 3 days? Farhana Frederick asked.
Depends on the scope, depends on what you want to complete in those 2 or 3 days. But if you want to include user testing and prototyping, it's really not a lot of time. So I would say no, not the entire design sprint. If you want to do just the workshop part where you end up with a storyboard with really good ideas that you want to then take into prototyping, you can do that part. Or if you have a very, very narrow scope with quite a very simple challenge. But if that's the case, then maybe a design sprint is not really what you wanna do, right? If the problem is not big enough. Like again, I want to emphasize is don't do design sprints if you don't plan on doing user testing. I mean, that's why that's the whole purpose of it.
Another question related to the onboarding from Claudia. So everyone sees everyone's onboarding.
Now we're duplicating these boards, and everyone has their own personal board, because yeah. So it's personal to everyone. We're creating one of these onboarding boards for each of the team members, so we end up having 7, 8 of them. And the decider has a special one, because with the decider sometimes, because they're not present at all times during the sprints. We really highlight when they're needed, right? When there is like decision-making time, you know, or they need to choose something, we just like show them those times, and we make sure that they're present when needed.
Also, another question from Jin Jing. How many people should we include in a remote design sprint? Same
7.
as on-site sprint?
7. So we
I have a story there.
what story? Now we try, like in our first one, we had, I think, about 10 decider included, and it was tough. And the schedule we showed earlier, we barely did it. So we optimized the process for 7 people remotely, you know, and all of the timings, even the one that you saw, like everything works for seven people really well. Plus, you know, because conversations happen much more difficult online, having more than 7 people would mean that some of them would not contribute, right? And you'll get passengers in your sprint, and it's quite hard to keep everyone engaged. That's why we prefer to keep it to 7. You know, it's fairly easy to engage everyone, and yeah, it's just easier for everyone, facilitator, team.
From Tia, another question. Do you also somehow ask the participants to prepare themselves for the topic beforehand? Some participants may not be as deep into the topic as the others. Before the onboarding?
It's almost like 2 questions in here. Now we don't, before the onboarding, we're not asking them to prepare because they don't know the sprint challenge, and it's difficult, right? But like once we discuss with them the sprint challenge, you know, and they understand that they need to talk about this challenge on Monday, yes, we do collect some insights during that interview I showed in the onboarding, so that's one thing. But knowing what's expected of you and knowing you'll speak in front of everyone on Monday, like, would you wanna look bad? So a lot of people, like, we don't even need to ask them to prepare, they will do it themselves because now they know around what they need to prepare. And in these onboarding sessions, if we pick up that they're like an expert on part of the problem, we ask them to emphasize that during their lightning talks, you know, and concentrate on that topic more. So that's why we don't need to ask them to prepare before the onboarding sessions. We're doing it in the onboarding sessions, and that works pretty well.
Okay. What tools are you using for user testing?
Zoom. Zoom. I mean, we're using Zoom for video conferencing. You can record the screen, the face at the same time. It has cloud recording, also a decent audio transcript. So for the design sprint works quite well. Before that, we were using what was that?
Lookback.
Lookback, yeah. But there's no point. Zoom now has everything that you need.
Another question from Marina. Do you prepare backup methods exercises in the agenda?
That's more like for you, this question.
We have everything already. So basically in our design sprint kit, we have all the exercises and everything that needs to be done to achieve specific goals. So everything is thought with purpose. All the icebreakers, all the warm-ups, all the breaks, all the exercises are meant to achieve a specific purpose. And until this point, we haven't found the need to replace any of them or change any of them.
We don't get surprises in our design sprints. We used to in the early days when we were not doing problem framing, and someone would raise their hand. It's like, hey, my colleagues in this other business unit are already working on this. We need to pick up another topic. Now we know what we're working on, and every activity that we're doing is related to the design sprint challenge. It's prepared in advance, which makes it for like a very smooth design sprint. Well, I remember the previous question with asking people to prepare, because the second part of the question was, what if they're not expert on the topic? And again, I wanna point out that in a design sprint, one of the most important criteria to pick up your team is to get people who are expert in the topic. So unless you're doing it for training or team building or just showing new ways of working, if you're doing it for really solving a serious challenge in your business, it should be people who have knowledge about the topic or are experts to some part of it. Because otherwise, how are they even going to contribute?
So we have one more question about preparing the design sprint from Ashima. Please, at what stage is customer validation conducted? And do you have a minimum sample size to gather voice of the customer?
You want to answer this?
It's always 2-3 weeks, even 4 weeks before the design sprint. So our main goal and purpose is always get the voice of the customer. We don't enter a design sprint without having clarity on what the customer problem is. And not the one that we assume or we guess or the team guesses, but the one that it is right now at the current state. So for that, we deploy different methods in order to get this answer. Sometimes the company, our client company has research and it's a matter of us going through it and picking the right insights that we need to present to the team. Sometimes they don't have anything. They don't even know who their target customer persona is, and we have to do a mini research to investigate. And for that, we run around 5 qualitative interviews, and we dive deep into their problems and try to extract those problem statements exactly as they are, so that we basically we end up bringing the customer voice with a very clear journey map, the as-is map. So we bring that into the sprint based on the research that we conducted or based on the data that we collected from the client.
So that's our job as a facilitator. It's still lightweight, right? So we're not going into any crazy research cycles, or projects. It's lightweight, but it's enough to give us the insight that the team need. Otherwise, you can consider your entire design sprint. If you go blind into the design sprint without having any kind of customer insights or anything, you can consider your design sprint as being research in itself. But you need to ask yourself, is it worth it? Because it's going to be a very expensive research project where you get 7 to 10 people in a room for a week to do something that one person could do in one day by asking a few questions to 5 people, right? So it's really important to see this.
So we're getting close to the end, and I still see we have a lot of questions. We will come back with an email and try to reply to them all in writing, because I see we still have a list here. So thank you so much for your questions and your interest, and let us know if there are the other things you want to know from us. And we don't want to end this session without a gift to you. So we just released a mural template that is basically a workshop. It's a problem statement workshop that it has all the stages, all the things you need to do and say in order to guide your team through this type of session. The main purpose of this type of workshop is to basically define the customer segment that matters the most to the client, and we also build empathy with the customer in the context where you don't have research and you don't know much, but you still need to prioritize your customers and make the decision to focus on the right target user. And I'm hoping our colleague Alex will paste the link in the chat so you'll get access to this. It's a free template made with love and purpose. How we like to.
And as Anna said, it's not only the template, but it's also the workshop in it. So you have all of the instructions for all of the activities, how to facilitate, how to run them. And this is a good way to prepare. And at least it's going to tell you what you know versus what you don't know. It's something you can do with your stakeholders, in less than 2 hours. And by the end of it, you get some clarity on what could be your sprint challenge, who could be your user, and what it is that you're trying to do.
And regarding your questions about our sprint kit and the onboarding mural that we just shared with you, they're all part of our sprint kit. You can purchase this, and I'm hoping Alex will paste the link in the chat for you. It is part of the kit, so that's like how we are going to offer it to you at this point. And I think our time's up.
Our time's up, but we're going to have other events.
We're going to have other events. The plan is to do at least one every 2 months. And I saw some interest in the problem framing part, and
Yeah.
I think
We can cover that as well.
cover that as well. We are also starting to build mural boards and tools in that direction, because it is a high demand for this type of workshops, and we're looking forward to give more.
Just follow us, and then you'll know. You'll know.
So
Okay.
if you found this session useful, please do share the love on social media. We would love your support, and also spread the word of the good things that we can share from our experience with others. Good.
I think, thank you. And we're looking forward to seeing you next time.
A recording of this video will come soon into your inbox. So don't worry if you missed anything or if sound didn't work as it was supposed to.
Okay.
Good.
Thank you.
All. Bye.